Because it's no secret that US President Donald Trump is targeting India, from imposing 50% tariffs on Russian oil purchases to stalling trade negotiations for a better deal to cozying up with Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir. Trump is leaving no opportunity to send out his message. His latest strike, one that majorly impacts Indians and citizens of several other nations as well, is a decision to slap an outrageous $100,000 fee on the H-1B visa. And now Washington is mulling the introduction of a new, stricter H-1B visa regime. What does this mean? Let's explain to you. Earlier, there was a random system that was there in place. Now, what is proposed is that there would be a weighted lottery that would come into effect. What changes is that there would be more entries to higher skilled applicants that comes in now into play. And in fact, what's in it for Indians is that there are better odds of selection for those with advanced degrees, fresh graduates, including those who have less wages, are more at risk with this new regime. However, President Trump has gone on a fresh rant over Russian oil purchases. From the platform of the UNGA, the US President has said that China and India are funding Moscow's war against Kyiv. He's also repeated his claim of stopping the India-Pakistan conflict. Listen in.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. In all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. This includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war that was, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. It included all of them. No president or prime minister, and for that matter, no other country has ever done anything close to that. It's never happened before.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
To talk about all these developments, joining us now is a very special guest. We have Mark Warner, who's not just a U.S. Senator from Virginia, but also the Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thank you so much for speaking to Times Now, Senator Warner. Now, I'd like to begin with what really has happened over the last few days since Prime Minister Modi's last visit to the United States, and now in terms of where India-American ties stand. What's your assessment of our bilateral relations under President Donald Trump? Because a lot has happened over the last 9 months since he's taken over.
I have been a huge advocate for stronger U.S.-India relations for years. And literally, I think we've seen enormous progress made over the years. We've seen, India now rank as the 8th largest trading partner with the United States. The United States remains the largest recipient of Indian goods and services. We've seen the formation of the Quad, where obviously India, Japan, Australia, United States have strengthened defense and other national security relations. So it appears that we were on a very good path. And, I'm not sure I would have expected this, because it appeared, again, from President Trump's first term that he and Prime Minister Modi had strong relations. I remember when Prime Minister Modi came to Texas and there was the Howdy Modi rally and President Trump won. But instead of strengthening these relations, I feel like they are, have gone backwards dramatically. And that's really based upon, one, President Trump's erratic policy around tariffs, where it appears that rates are granted almost based on a personal basis, or whether he's been offended or not basis. And the fact that India now is facing a 50% tariff And I have been disappointed with India buying as much Russian oil as it has, I think over $50 billion worth. But the idea that India is somehow being singled out while China buys much more Russian oil is not receiving the same tariff rate doesn't seem fair.
Absolutely.
And it appears to me, and I say this more based upon readings in the press, that, there was disagreement in terms of how big a role the United States government played in bringing a ceasefire with the recent India-Pakistan clashes. I'm glad there was that ceasefire, but it appears that some folks on our side, the American side, thought that maybe we had a bigger role than we did.
Right. I want to come to that aspect as well, because you have mentioned Quad in your very first response. There are many in India who are now skeptical of whether the Quad has a viable future if India is compelled to move closer to Russia and at an economic level with China. Does President Trump realize that his decisions have pushed India to consider other alternatives and options, and perhaps in that sense pushed it closer towards Russia and China's embrace?
I would hope that would not be the case. And I can tell you on a bipartisan basis in the United States, there is still huge understanding that the U.S.-India relationship is one of the top 2 or 3 relationships that America will have with any nation in the 21st century. It is hard to predict President Trump's ego. I think we have, in Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, we have 2 leaders with very, very strong egos. And I just hope that this clash of personalities does not result in changing part of geopolitics. Because I've been to India many times, and it's very hard to find many Indians, at least that are, say, younger than 60 years old, that think their future is going to be better served with closer alignment, for example, with Russia or China, for that matter. I can remember when senior leaders, one of the most senior leaders in the Indian government, said India's 3 top concerns are China, China, China. So there is clearly a bit of a personality clash going on between our 2 leaders. But if those of us with hopefully longer visions and who've been at building this relationship, literally, in my case, for decades, I hope and pray that we will get by this quickly, because it's not in the United States' best interest, nor do I believe it's in India's best interest to kind of race into the hands of authoritarian regimes.
I'm also going to ask you this question in 2 parts because it's about the Trump administration's announcement on H-1B visas, which does affect Indian talent in a significant way. About 70% of these visas are given to Indians working in companies based out of the United States. Now, many believe that this will disincentivize the movement of talent from India to U.S. How do you see this? And secondly, do you believe Trump is trying to leverage this to secure a favorable trade deal while bilateral negotiations are underway?
Well, let me say, I've been a supporter of H-1B visas for a long time, and we have in my state of Virginia, we have a very robust technology community. We have, I've seen the quality of the H-1B workers, as you said, many from India. So, this approach that Trump is taking is, again, seems a bit crass and over the top. But I would acknowledge that there have been times, and I say this as a big supporter of H-1Bs, when some Indian firms have used H-1Bs on a price arbitrage basis to take the same worker in America and substitute someone in at a much lower salary rate coming out of India. So I think the idea of some kind of reform of the H-1B process would have been all right. I'm at a technology firm in New York right now, a relatively small firm. They have, some, Indians on H-1B visas here. They're very important to their firm. they couldn't afford, to pay another $600,000 or $700,000, to continue to attract that talent. So I think that the notion that this may be used as part of the leverage that Secretary Bessent has with your Commerce Minister maybe makes some sense, or not make sense, but that's believable to me. I do think H-1B program needed reform so that we could attract talent that were going to be entrepreneurs that might not, surely wouldn't be able to pay the fee. But I do know that the large firms get far and away a disproportionate share on the H-1Bs, and sometimes there's been gaming of the system. This is with so many things with President Trump. He may have something that is directionally is an issue that needs to be addressed, but he brings a sledgehammer to every problem. And the idea that we're going to have this $100,000 visa program or the $1 million visa, the Trump visa, just it seems unseemly, and it's not the way to actually reform the system.
But do you see President Trump backing down at all, or has he gone too far now in trying to appease his MAGA base that any climb down could perhaps see him lose support? There are already voices of disappointment that are coming in as to some of the clarifications.
Yeah, it does seem to be sticking a thumb in the eye of India, where, again, on a bipartisan basis for 40 years, including President Trump's first administration, we tried to bring India, closer into alignment with the United States. And I am somebody that, a senior member of the United States Senate, but predicting Trump policy moves, if you can do that, you're a better predictor than me. And I don't know anyone in the United States Senate of either party that can actually predict President Trump's strategy. Some of these moves are provocative, but as I said, I've been disappointed with India in terms of their not even trying to wean their way off of the Russian oil, and the H-1B program, has been ripe for criticism for some time. I would rather have made it fairer rather than simply putting a big price tag on it, which frankly will even move it more towards just benefiting large companies.
Now, if we speak about politics within the U.S., would you agree that it's become a lot more polarized in recent months? It was a very polarizing presidential election campaign as well last year. Now you have had the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. What's your take on where American politics stands right now in terms of the rhetoric that we've witnessed and the violence that has accompanied it?
Well, I think whether it's American politics, whether it's Indian politics, whether it's politics in any democracy, we are seeing the challenges, particularly driven by social media, that allows citizens to simply have reinforcing messages. That is a huge concern. I've had bipartisan legislation for years that would have put guardrails on some of the social media, and now with AI, it's going to get worse. I feel the state of American politics is fractured. It was a tragedy that Charlie Kirk got murdered.
Right. And finally, Senator Warner, you've been a strong advocate of full disclosure when it comes to the Epstein files. Do you believe that this administration has anything to hide? They claim that they have released all that they can. Do you believe Trump's name is there in the files? Is there a client list, for instance? What's your view?
I don't know what's in the Epstein files, but I think it is ironic that the Attorney General has said that the president's name is in the files. Now, I'm not making any conclusions because it was well known that he and Mr. Epstein were friends for a number of years. But there are a wide swath of the American people who are very concerned about this. And the only way is to make all the files public. And I do not believe the administration has made all the files public. And ironically, it was President Trump himself as a candidate who said, let's release all the Epstein files. So the sooner the better. I hope there's nothing there. But again, this cloud will hang over the administration until all the files are released.
Senator Warner, thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now.
The News Hour at 10.